Good evening. It's 8 o'clock. The top headlines tonight. Well, Russia launches a nuclear-capable intercontinental ballistic missile. Russia's President Vladimir Putin says this missile has no equivalence in the world and will make those think twice who threaten us. This major military victory, meanwhile, for Putin as Ukrainian port city of Mariupol falls. Well, from a bulldozer factory to Mahatma Gandhi's Sabarmati Ashram, the UK Prime Minister's first day of his India visit in Gujarat. He will meet Prime Minister Modi in Delhi tomorrow. He says he will bring up Russia, but points out that India has a very different historical relationship with Russia. The Supreme Court says an all-India order on stopping demolitions is not possible. However, the bench says it takes a serious view of any demolitions in Delhi yesterday after a Supreme Court stay. The centre says that demolitions in different states are not targeted at one community. This, as petitioners argued, that there's a pattern of demolitions across India targeting minorities. Well, the PK plan. Sonia Gandhi is to meet political strategist Prashant Kishore tomorrow, likely to be the final step before he joins the Congress. An NDTV exclusive. What does PK plan for the Congress makeover? Well, a creation of a new Congress for the masses and destroying entitlement and sycophancy is some of the draft plan. A government panel has been set up into fires with electric scooters. Minister Nitin Gadkari says there will be quality guidelines soon for electric vehicles. This as a man is killed as a battery blows up during charging in Telangana. The big worry in March and April is the hottest in 30 years in the hill state of Uttarakhand. So the snow is melting much sooner than expected. Our lead story tonight. Well, Russia has launched a major nuclear-capable intercontinental ballistic missile. Let's just look at that because Russia's announcement came today with a video on Russian television showing President Vladimir Putin congratulating the Defense Ministry with that major launch of this missile, which President Putin said has no equivalence in the world, saying this will make all those countries who are thinking of harsh rhetoric and aggression think twice about attacking us.
Putin praises Russia's new nuclear missile, Sarmat. Putin says that this is a significant event for Russia's defense industry and that those who threaten Russia must think twice.
Аналогов ему в мире нет и еще долго не будет. Это действительно уникальное оружие будет укреплять боевой потенциал наших вооруженных сил. Надежно обеспечит безопасность России от внешних угроз и заставит задуматься тех, кто в полуоголтелой агрессивной риторике пытается угрожать нашей стране.
So the launch of that missile and President Putin's statements coming on a day that Russia is claiming a major victory with the fall of the key strategic port city of Mariupol in Ukraine. So Vishnu Shom joining us live now on this. Vishnu, how significant is this fall of this key port city? Is it a major development, a turning point in this war, which is now entering almost 2 months?
Well, Russia's declaration of a victory in Mariupol is a very major development as far as this war is concerned. Remember, this was one city which was holding up against the might of the Russian armed forces, not just the army itself, but also the Russian Air Force for nearly 2 months. It was widely expected that Mariupol would collapse. The city itself has been devastated completely. But there is that one small element of a Ukrainian rearguard operation which is taking place in the gigantic Azov steel plant in Mariupol. And there's a sense that the soldiers over there will continue to fight till the bitter end. For Russia, this is a huge, huge victory. Is this what Vladimir Putin would like to declare to his nation in the days going ahead as their significant gain in Ukraine? And would that result in perhaps tensions in this region coming down. That's a possibility which we'll have to wait to try and see and understand.
So, Vishnu, we're still waiting for an official Ukraine response, but what really are the options now ahead?
Well, there are three real options over here. The first option, as I mentioned, that Vladimir Putin on National Victory Day in Russia in a couple of days from now declares Mariupol as their major gain, and the process of the tensions coming down actually takes place. In many senses, that would be a best case situation. The second option is that Russia continues to push westwards in this country. And the third option is that there is a no-win, no-loss situation for both countries, because at the moment, they are fairly evenly matched, the Ukrainians, in terms of their defensive deployments, the fact that they've got a lot of Western military equipment coming in. They've got a lot of hunter-killer drones now available with them, more artillery coming in. The fact that they are fighting against a dejected Russian force, while on the other hand, you've got the Russians, a much larger army, bringing in a lot of new equipment and trying to push westwards. But, you know, between this battle of offensive and defensive forces, who's going to actually come out of this as a victor? Nobody knows. A strong possibility that it would be no win, no loss.
Right, Vishnu, thanks so much for that live update. Meanwhile, America's President Joe Biden has just responded, saying that he hopes that Russia will allow the civilian population of this city to be evacuated. As we said, Mariupol is a key strategic port city. It also links to, of course, Crimea, which Russia had annexed some years ago. So it really is a key victory for Russia. Will that be enough? Meanwhile, as we saw, Vishnu has been reporting that the death toll in Ukraine is still being calculated. Mass graves are still being uncovered. And in this moving report, he talks now of a graveyard where at least 1,000 graves have already come up.
The final rites of a man buried in this graveyard in Chernihiv. The priest prays for peace for the soul of the departed. In this muddy, wet graveyard, there's a single person standing with the priest as he prays, no large gathering of friends and family. There may, in fact, be no one else alive in his family or among his friends to honor his memory. This is the horror of Chernihiv. An ancient town in North Ukraine, less than 30 kilometers from the border with Belarus. As Russian soldiers withdrew from this area, this is what they left behind. Scores of dead bodies in caskets. We counted 1,000 of them. 1,000 graves in just this one location. If you look at the dates which have actually been written, this individual passed away on the 30th of March 2022. If you move to this particular one, on the 28th of March 2022, this individual passed away. Behind that 30th of March. The point being that these are all recent deaths in a city which was partially evacuated when the Russians started coming over here. All of these individuals lost their lives in this war. The men digging graves here now need to use bulldozers to dig through the soil. With dead bodies and caskets pouring in, there is often no time to dig a site for a grave using just shovels. Victor digs graves here for a living, but even he is not immune to the horrors of war, despite having done this for years. As the Russians bombed overhead, Victor kept digging. Infants, children, the old and infirm, soldiers, they all lie here. How many graves have been made over here in the last 50 odd days?
Как вас зовут? Сколько могил здесь организовано?
Зовут меня Виктор, где-то больше 1000 уже могил.
His name is Victor, and more than 1,000 places are organized by him on this place.
Everybody over here has been killed in the war?
Это все люди, которые были убиты на войне?
Кто умирал от сердечных, так, своей смертью, и кто убитые были здесь все. Здесь все.
Yes, absolutely. Those who died during this war.
In the Chernihiv area of North Ukraine, at this graveyard, we counted more than 1,000 graves. Each grave had a certain date of the person on the date on which they died. All of these individuals killed over here, approximately 1,000 plus of them were killed in this war. The numbers of people killed in a war is always very difficult to get an exact fix of. But the numbers are very, very significant. And this is just one graveyard in an area of the Ukraine devastated by a war which has now gone on for more than 50 days. Vishnu for NDTV.
The truth of what's happening in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Germany today announced that it will end imports from Russia of oil by the end of this year. As Indian markets gained 1.5%, oil prices surged on that German announcement. The Sensex gained 874 points, the Nifty gained 256 points. The Reliance stock hit an all-time high today. The market cap neared 19 lakh crores. Brent crude prices, however, going up, so that may weigh down the markets tomorrow because they're now trading above $108 a barrel after Germany's foreign minister declared the ban on Russian oil by the end of the year.
Ich sage daher hier klar und deutlich, ja, auch Deutschland steigt vollständig aus russischen Energieimporten aus. Aus Kohle bis Ende des Sommers, Öl halbieren wir bis zum Sommer und werden bis Jahresende bei Null sein. Und dann folgt auch Gas, und zwar in einem gemeinsamen europäischen Fahrplan, denn unser gemeinsamer Ausstieg, der Komplettausstieg der Europäischen Union, das ist unsere gemeinsame Stärke.
A major announcement there by Germany. A major use of energy, of Russian energy, is Germany. In fact, is the biggest in Europe. So that impact on oil prices is huge. Meanwhile, Britain's Prime Minister is in India. He spent his first day in Gujarat and, interestingly, from visiting a bulldozer factory, bulldozer very much in focus now, to Mahatma Gandhi's Sabarmati Ashram, two major contrasts, as well as Akshardham and meeting India's richest man, Gautam Adani. He had a packed day in Ahmedabad and Gujarat. He'll be in Delhi tomorrow meeting the Prime Minister. He said he will have tough conversations on Russia, but said that India had condemned the civilian graves in Ukraine and also that he understood that India had a special historical relationship with Russia.
The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom on a bulldozer at a time when they are in the news in India for very different reasons. It was a visit to the British company JCB's new plant in Halol in Gujarat, where he was asked if the UK was embarrassed about the firm's bulldozer's involvement in the demolitions in Delhi. Johnson's official spokesperson told the British daily The Independent, "It's a matter for the Indian authorities on how any equipment is used. Mr. Johnson chose to go to the JCB factory because it is a very good illustration of a UK business working with India." Earlier, he visited the Sabarmati Ashram and paid tribute to Mahatma Gandhi, who led India's freedom struggle against British rule. He was gifted 2 books, including the unpublished Guide to London written by the Mahatma himself. He told NDTV it was a humbling experience.
So how was your visit to the Sabarmati Ashram?
Extraordinary, very moving and humbling to go and see the ashram of Mahatma Gandhi and to have an idea of the kind of life that he lived and what an extraordinary man he was and the values and the principles that he stood for. Truth and non-violence, I think, fantastic.
The UK PM meets Prime Minister Modi tomorrow, where he said he's going to bring up India's stand on Russia.
As I think everybody understands, India and Russia have a historically very different relationship, perhaps than Russia and the UK have had over the last couple of decades. We have to reflect that reality, but clearly I'll be talking about it to Narendra Modi.
Johnson also met industrialist Gautam Adani at the Adani headquarters over lunch. They discussed support for climate and sustainability agenda with a focus on renewables and cooperation with UK companies on defence and aerospace technologies.
I think the Australian Foreign Minister to join online. As it happens, these things always are a bit iffy till the last minute, so please bear with us. But I think these names should be all confirmed. They will also have, as I said, official engagements.
The main aim of Boris Johnson's visit to India is to strengthen bilateral ties in defense, security and trade. And while Ukraine will come up in the discussions, Boris Johnson wants to cement a free trade deal with India, which Britain hopes to conclude by 2022. In Gandhinagar, with camera person Rajendra Dayalkar, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
And of course, for Prime Minister Boris Johnson, India is a welcome escape given all the heat that he's facing back home over Partygate. That's, of course, parties hosted at 10 Downing Street while a COVID lockdown was on. Meanwhile, staying with news on bulldozers, we just pointed out the contrast between, Prime Minister Johnson at a bulldozer plant and Mahatma Gandhi's ashram. Today, the Supreme Court said, a day after those demolitions in Delhi's Jahangirpuri, that there is no question of them being able to give an all-India order on demolitions that are currently going on. The centre argued today that the demolitions were happening as per law and didn't target a particular community. This was in response to petitioners saying that the demolitions were against the rule of law in different states and were targeting Muslims specifically. The Supreme Court, however, said it would take a serious view of any demolitions that took place yesterday after the mayor who was in charge there had been informed of a Supreme Court order staying them.
Small-time vendors whose pushcarts, roadside shops were destroyed by the BJP-led Delhi municipality on Wednesday appealed to the Supreme Court today to stop further such demolition and seek compensation. In a big but temporary relief, the top court today ordered that no demolitions will take place in Jahangirpuri for 2 weeks. The court wants the North Delhi municipality to respond. Its mayor had at 11 am acknowledged the Supreme Court's stay on the demolitions, but these continued for over an hour more.
नहीं, मेरे पास अभी मैसेज नहीं है एक्चुअली कि मैं फ़ोन उठा नहीं पा रहा. अभी मैं डिस्कस करके जैसे भी सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जो भी आदेश होगा उस पर पालन किया जाए. सुप्रीम कोर्ट सुप्रीम है और बिल्कुल हमें विश्वास है सुप्रीम कोर्ट जो कहेगी उसका पूरा हम पालन करेंगे. अभी मैं अपनी अधिकारियों से बात करता हूं, उनको उसका कम्युनिकेशन आया.
A two-judge bench of Justice Ellen Rao and B.R. Gawai today said, "We will take a serious view of all demolitions that took place after the Supreme Court decision was communicated to the MCD mayor. If demolition yesterday was only restricted to chairs, boxes, benches, etc., then why were bulldozers needed? Does the law state that prior notices are to be served for such demolitions?" The centre responded to these questions by saying that notices were served for properties where it was required by law. No notices were needed for removal of building materials, chairs, benches, etc.
In this matter also a part of a mosque was demolished. Then in that process certainly there are certain tables and chairs that will be taken away. So making that chair and table case is not proper. About 20 odd shops and 20-25 odd houses along with certain part of the mosque has been demolished. And this could have been saved if the authorities would have acted upon, immediately after knowing the fact that the Supreme Court has passed orders.
When Advocate Dushyant Dave, appearing for the petitioners, read out Delhi BJP President Adesh Gupta's letter to the NDMC Commissioner seeking demolitions, the court asked that was his wish, to which Dave responded that the wish was treated as a command by the NDMC, who then implemented it.
It's not just the bulldozers in Delhi but also those in Madhya Pradesh's Khargone that came up in the hearing. The centre today refuted any communal angle in the demolitions when Advocate Kapil Sibal, who is representing the petitioners, said that encroachments are not limited to one community but here they are being connected to one community alone. Centre said in MP's Khargone, 88 affected parties were Hindus and only 26 were Muslims. And this was the fifth encroachment drive in Jahangirpuri this year. The court was hearing 3 petitions, one by Jahangirpuri residents, another by CPM leader Brinda Karat and an All India one by the Jamiat Ulama-e-Hind against demolitions across India in riot-affected areas. Arguing for the petitioners, lawyers Kapil Sibal and Dushyant Dave said, "Muslims are being targeted. There is a pattern of demolitions across India. If demolitions are not stopped, there will be no rule of law and no democracy left. No such demolitions took place after the 1984 riots or the 2002 riots. There are 1,731 unauthorized colonies with 50 lakh people in Delhi, but only one community is being targeted." Significantly, the Supreme Court refused to stay similar demolitions in other states. saying such an all-India order cannot be passed. When the petitioner requested that at least those with bulldozers should be stopped, the court said that demolitions are done with a bulldozer only.
The Supreme Court has given the centre and NDMC 2 weeks' time to respond on the petitions. It will then also examine whether there was non-compliance of its order yesterday to stop the demolitions in Jahangirpuri. In New Delhi with camera person Prem Singh, this is Sukirti Dwivedi for NDTV.
Meanwhile, NDTV exclusive, Nidhi joins us with breaking news on what's happening with the Congress and poll strategist Prashant Kishore. Nidhi, so you've got details of what's in his draft presentation. He's likely to meet Sonia Gandhi tomorrow.
That's right, Sonia. A lot of speculation because Prashant Kishore is one of the country's most well-known poll strategists, and now he is expected to meet Sonia Gandhi perhaps tomorrow or in the next day or two after that, where a final call will be taken on his induction into the Congress. But more importantly, from the Congress's point of view, he's drawn up a presentation on how he feels the party can revive. He presented that to Congress leaders last week, but we have accessed a draft that actually he had presented many months ago, and among the important things that he has suggested, if you can see right there, is that the working president of the Congress party should be a non-Gandhi. It's very interesting how he's made a distinction between the UPA chairperson, the president of the All India Congress, and the working president of the party. So he says Sonia Gandhi should stay on as president of the All India Congress, but the working president or the vice president should be a non-Gandhi, and that there is no alternative to this. Very interesting, because currently, we see that the Congress is facing a huge leadership crisis, and he has also said that the leader of the parliamentary board or the parliamentary party should actually be Rahul Gandhi himself. In this draft presentation, he's also gone to talk about all the big problems the party has, from being disconnected from its grassroots, from having an aged and a jaded leadership. Those are the words that he has used, and said, therefore, a new Congress needs to be created for the masses that also protects its core values, but it needs to destroy the sense of entitlement and sycophancy in the party. It also needs to fix the issues and confusion that it has with alliances. So get moving on that, and also create an army of grassroots leaders. This was what the draft presentation was, Sonia, that was presented to the Congress last year, several months ago. But in the final presentation, what we do know is that he has talked about focusing on 370 to 400 seats for the Congress party, that those are the seats that they need to focus on, as well as alliances, and also importantly overhaul their communication setup completely, which is amongst the main things that he has flagged.
So that's very interesting, Nidhi. And of course, the fact that it was given almost a year ago, the draft proposal, has anything really changed since then? The Congress, of course, now with heightened urgency after a series of recent losses. So let's see what happens in that crucial meeting of Congress President Sonia Gandhi with Prashant Kishore. And apparently, it's all but final now that he will be joining the Congress party. But let's see. As we know, there have been many a slip with Prashant Kishore in the Congress in the past.
And also some leaders in the party themselves don't want him there, Sonia. You know, the Congress is like that. It's got a whole bunch of leaders, the old guard, who are very resistant to change. So the question is, will Sonia Gandhi listen to those voices, or is she just going to take a leap of faith and do something different?
Right. Thanks so much, Nidhi, for joining us on that. But let's just go across the other big headline, and that's on COVID, where cases continue to rise. India currently reporting over 2,000 new COVID cases. So if you can look at that from the last 24 hours, it's gone up 15%. The deaths, now that's something we need to keep a very close eye on, because the deaths are 56. That's up 40%. And the positivity is 0.53%. That's still less than 1%. The tests are also up at nearly 4 lakh. 50. So where are the COVID cases and deaths actually coming from? The highest cases are in Delhi, which are over 1,009. Kerala at 355, also high. Haryana 310. Then UP at 168. And Maharashtra is where the highest daily COVID cases are coming from. Remember, Delhi, of course, has high testing, so numbers here are likely to be higher. Many people who may be infected aren't just testing, because the symptoms are flu-like and they haven't been reported as serious so far. So let's just keep our focus on that. Meanwhile, in other news, today the centre, the Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari has announced a panel to look into the recent incidents of electric scooters catching fires. In the latest incident which has come up, we saw it happen last week, and today being reported in Telangana as well. But tragically, an 80-year-old man has died today as an electric battery is being charged in his home of his scooter blew up. He was killed, and his family, who were trying to help him, have also faced severe burn injuries. So again, another worrying incident of a life being lost there Nitin Gadkari saying that there will soon be quality guidelines for electric vehicles and will address this worry of the recent cases of electric scooters or their batteries catching fire. Well, in some worrying climate change news, the months of March and April so far in the hill state of Uttarakhand have been the warmest in the state in the last 30 years. That's according to the Regional Met Department. In the latest forecast, temperatures in Himachal Pradesh are likely to be 5 degrees above normal during the day, and in Uttarakhand, the minimum temperatures will be 3 to 5 degrees above normal. The extended range forecast for the next 3 to 4 weeks again shows temperatures well above normal continuing in Uttarakhand, but also in Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh in some areas. So what's worrying about that is because the temperature is so high, the snow here is melting much faster. So of course implications for our monsoon and summer as the hot summer ahead in the plains as well. So an indication of climate change there is how hot the hills already are this March and April.